Imagine finally finding the one office chair that doesn't make your back feel like it's being punished, and then watching a coworker casually walk over, take it, and roll it across the office. Right in front of you. You tell him to stop. He doesn't. So you wait. And then you give him exactly what he thinks he wants. Except this chair has a problem. A very annoying problem. It slowly sinks every time you sit in it. And my coworker spent the next 2 weeks discovering that for himself. If you've ever had a coworker who thought your boundaries were optional, hit that like button, subscribe, and settle in. Because sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't loud. You don't have to yell. You don't have to make a scene. Sometimes, you just let someone make their own mistake. There are certain things in an office that nobody thinks about until they're forced to think about them. The printer, the coffee machine, the temperature of the air conditioning, and office chairs, especially office chairs. Our office had one of those situations where every chair technically looked the same. Same basic design, same color, same wheels, same adjustable height lever. But somehow they were absolutely not the same. Some were comfortable, some were tolerable, and some felt like they had been personally designed by someone who hated human beings. You could sit in one of the bad chairs for 10 minutes and already feel your lower back complaining. An hour later, you were shifting around constantly. By the end of the day, you were practically negotiating with your spine. My original chair wasn't terrible. But after months of working there, I eventually found one that was actually comfortable. Supported my back properly. The seat didn't feel like concrete. The wheels moved smoothly. The height stayed where I put it. It was just good. And once you've found a good office chair, you don't casually give it up. I kept that chair at my desk for months. Then there was my coworker. I'll call him Mark. Mark sat in the row behind me, and apparently Mark's chair was awful. Now, I could sympathize with that. If your chair is uncomfortable, that's frustrating. But there's a simple solution. Ask for another chair. Tell management. Swap it with someone. Whatever. What you don't do is repeatedly steal someone else's chair. But that's exactly what Mark started doing. Whenever I worked from home, he'd come over, grab my chair, and roll it back to his desk. At first, I didn't make a huge deal about it. I'd come in the next morning, notice my chair was gone, and roll it back. No confrontation. No argument. Just put it back. I assumed he'd eventually get the message. He didn't. Then one afternoon, everything changed. I was standing outside a meeting room, waiting for a meeting to start. I was on my phone, killing a few minutes, and from where I was standing, I could see the office floor. Then I saw Mark. He walked over to my desk, looked at my chair, grabbed it, and started rolling it toward his desk. I watched him do it. He didn't even hesitate, didn't look around, didn't ask, didn't care. It was almost as if the chair had his name written on it. I called out to him, "Hey, can you stop taking my chair?" He either ignored me or pretended not to hear, so I said it again. "Seriously, please stop taking my chair." He kept rolling, and that's the moment something inside me shifted, because this wasn't about a chair anymore. It was about respect. It was about someone repeatedly being told, "Don't do this," and deciding that your answer didn't matter. I stood there watching him disappear behind the row of desks with my chair, and I remember thinking, fine, if talking doesn't work, maybe experience will. For a while, I continued putting the chair back, but every time I did, I became more irritated. It was the same routine. I'd return it, he'd take it. I'd return it, he'd take it. At some point, I realized I was participating in a cycle that he had no reason to stop. Why would he? He was getting exactly what he wanted. So I decided to give him something else. I didn't announce my plan. I didn't threaten him. I didn't tell anyone. I simply waited for Friday. At the end of the workday, when most people were wrapping things up and getting ready to leave, I looked at my chair. Then I looked across the office at one of the worst chairs in our section. Same basic model. Almost identical appearance. If you weren't paying attention, you could easily mistake one for the other. But this chair had issues. Serious issues. The first problem was the height mechanism. It slowly sank while you were sitting in it. Not instantly, That would have been obvious. No, it was slow, almost imperceptible. You'd sit down at the correct height. Then, after some time, you'd realize your knees were getting higher. Your desk was suddenly too tall. You'd pull the lever. The chair would rise again. And then, slowly, it would sink. The second problem was one wheel. It randomly locked up. So you'd roll forward smoothly, and suddenly one wheel would decide it had reached its destination. The chair would jerk. You'd have to adjust yourself. It was annoying. Not dangerous. Just deeply, relentlessly irritating. Perfect. I swapped the chairs. My good chair went somewhere safe. An empty office nobody used. The terrible chair went to my desk. Then I went home. I spent the weekend wondering whether Mark would notice. Monday morning came. I sat down at my desk and waited. A little while later, Mark appeared. I watched him approach. He didn't say anything. He didn't even look at me. He simply grabbed the chair at my desk and rolled away. I almost laughed. He had done it automatically, like muscle memory. He had no idea what was waiting for him. For the first few hours, everything seemed normal. Then I saw him pull the height lever. The chair rose. He sat down. A few minutes passed. Then he pulled the lever again. The chair rose. I went back to work. Another hour passed. The lever. Again. Then I noticed something else. Mark was shifting around. He leaned forward, then backward. He adjusted the chair. He looked underneath it. And finally, he pulled the lever again. I had to look away because I was starting to smile. The chair was doing exactly what it was famous for. Slowly sinking. And the funniest part? He didn't immediately return it. He kept using it. Day after day. Every few hours, I'd see him raise himself back up. Sometimes he'd stop in the middle of working and stare down at the chair like he was trying to figure out what kind of mechanical betrayal had just occurred. Meanwhile, my good chair was sitting safely in that empty office. Untouched. Perfectly fine. And I just kept doing my job. For nearly 2 weeks. That was the part that genuinely confused me. Because at some point I started wondering, why is he still using this thing? He knew it was bad. He had to know. Every day he was repeatedly adjusting the height. Every day that wheel was occasionally locking up. And yet he kept coming back to it. At first I thought maybe he hadn't figured out where his original chair was. Then I realized, he knew. This wasn't confusion. It was stubbornness. Maybe he was trying to prove a point. Maybe he didn't want to admit he'd been stealing my chair. Maybe he thought continuing to use it somehow meant he had one. Whatever the reason, he kept doing it. And honestly, that made the whole thing even funnier. Because I hadn't even needed to do anything. I didn't confront him. I didn't embarrass him. I didn't complain to management. I didn't create some elaborate trap. I simply stopped giving him the chair he wanted. Eventually, the frustration caught up with him. One afternoon, I saw him roll the chair back toward my desk. He dropped it off. Then he walked back to his own desk. And that was it. He never stole it again. The next day, I quietly brought my good chair back out of hiding. I sat down, adjusted the height, leaned back. Perfect. No sinking. No locked wheel. No constant adjustments. Just a comfortable chair. And the best part? Mark never touched it again. Not once. Looking back, the most satisfying part wasn't watching him struggle with the chair. It was realizing that he had finally learned the lesson I'd been trying to communicate for weeks. It's not yours. I had asked him politely, twice. He ignored me, so I didn't need to punish him. I simply stopped rewarding his behavior. And suddenly, his little game wasn't fun anymore. The chair he had been so determined to steal became the chair he couldn't stand using. And when he finally gave it back, I didn't celebrate. I didn't laugh in his face. I didn't say, I told you so. I just took my chair back. Because sometimes the strongest revenge is letting someone experience the consequences of their own choices. And honestly, every time I saw him sitting in that awful chair, slowly sinking toward the floor, I couldn't help but think, you could have just left my chair alone. There are people who don't respect boundaries until ignoring them becomes inconvenient for them. Sometimes you can argue. Sometimes you can complain. And sometimes, you simply let karma take a seat. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more satisfying revenge stories. And tell me in the comments, what's the most ridiculous thing someone has ever stolen from you? And did they ever regret it? Because apparently, even an office chair can deliver a little karma.